Hi, my name is Nick. I'm the designer of the Banished Vault. In this video, I'll be doing a small tour of the game and showing off all the things you'll be doing to try and survive in space. Your vault is kind of an interstellar Gothic monastery ship that travels from star to star, and at the opening of the game, the crew discovers a interstellar force called the Gloom that begins consuming planets, destroying solar systems. It kills many people, and your journey is to travel across the stars, write the chronicle of your journey, and try to survive the best you can. In the vault here, we have the crew that we start our game with, we have some resources that we start with, and then a few other things that are a bit more advanced as we get onto it. The goal in every solar system is to gather enough stasis to hibernate all of our exiles before our turns run out and the Gloom catches up to us and starts destroying the star. Here we can see we have some ships already, and all of these are set on the map. And the map is displayed in this grid-like fashion that organizes planets and moons according to their energy distances from one another. We can see there's plenty of resources that we can go out and gather. And then we have our sun, which as the turns kind of tick down, you can start to see is slowly consumed by this otherworldly ethereal force that is the Gloom. One of the primary things you'll be doing is moving ships around the solar system, going from planets to moons and around the vault, and so let's get into that. Here we can see our ship interface, and so to start we're going to choose some exiles to go into the solar system. As we look around the map, we can see planets have various resources and various costs in getting there, and as far as fuel and so on. So let's go back to our ship, and first let's get some fuel from our vault, bring it to the ship, and next assign an engine. And now finally set our destination. So we can see traveling to this planet costs 23 energy and 3 time. So you can see we need 23 energy to get to this planet. And to generate that energy, our engine needs fuel assigned to it. So we'll start ticking up how much fuel we need, and then 6 is the total amount of fuel with this engine and this ship to get to this planet. So next, before we go, we'll actually want to bring some resources to build outpost buildings with. So let's bring some iron and titanium, and we can set off. So if we hit start maneuver, our ship is underway. While we're traveling, it does take time because of the distances between planets in the solar system. So each indication here on the map is a turn that we'll have to wait while the ship is traveling. And so this planet being very distant is several turns away. And then once it's finally there, we've arrived. Once we've arrived at our planet, we can start harvesting resources and creating things like fuel and stasis, which will help us escape the solar system. We can enter the planet's view by clicking on the figurine, and now we can see some other aspects of the planet that weren't visible from the map, such as where the resources are and how big this grid is and how many buildings we can construct on it. So firstly, we'll assign an exile to the laborer position on the planet and bring the resources that we had carried with us, which will allow us to start building. The first one we'll make is a water harvester. Harvesters have to be constructed over the resource on the grid directly. So we'll put our water harvester there and construct it, which uses the iron that we had, some of the iron that we had brought. And as you can see, we're actually out of action, so we couldn't build anymore. And so let's swap our exile and then start planning a titanium harvester up here. We could as well start planning other buildings before we construct anything, because once a building is constructed, it cannot be deleted. So while it's placed but not constructed, we can remove it. And so it's helpful to start setting down multiple buildings just to make sure we can fit everything where we want to. And so I know I want to build a fuel producer, and so I can look for a location there, and let's say we want to put it right here just so it's out of the way. Now let's construct our buildings. Now we can start creating fuel out of water. However, both of our exiles are out of their actions, and so we'll end the turn, and you can see that they will gain actions equal to the action restore value of the planet, which changes depending on where you are in the solar system. But now each of our exiles has 4 actions, and so we can say operate twice and generate some water, and then we can move over to our fuel building and start creating fuel from our water. And let's just use up all the water we have, and now we've created a whole lot of fuel for this ship to go to other planets in the solar system. What happens as the turns run out in the solar system is the sun starts being destroyed by the gloom. When the turns hit 0, the planets themselves will start to be destroyed, and all ships, buildings, and exiles on the planets will be destroyed as well. So what we want to do is leave the solar system, get back to the vault, and start hibernating before everyone dies. So what we'll do is simply reverse what we have done before and assign our energy and proceed to the vault. As you can see, we'll start getting to the final moments of the solar system as it's being permanently destroyed, and once time runs out, you can see the planets themselves will start to go. You still have a little bit of time if you're operating in the kind of furthest reaches of the solar system away from the sun itself, but it is turn by turn, every planet starts to be killed. Once your time fully runs out, all you can do is put your exiles into hibernation. Once you've decided to leave the solar system, you'll enter the hibernation phase of the game. Here is where you will spend stasis to put your exiles to sleep for the transit to the next solar system. And so we'll choose to put everyone to sleep because we have enough stasis to do that. If you don't have enough stasis, you'll have to decide who is going to survive until the next solar system. We'll confirm that, and now we can use the knowledge we've gathered from artifacts to purchase new blueprints for buildings, ships, and engines that we can construct, or unique abilities for our exiles. And so here we'll purchase this one and a better fuel producer for ourselves, and then we'll save the rest of the knowledge. That's it. And now we'll conclude our hibernation and enter the next solar system. Artifacts are objects that you collect from the surfaces of planets, return to your vault, and are then converted into knowledge, which allow you to purchase abilities for your exiles or new blueprints for buildings or ships or engines. The way this works is planets have a certain type of artifact that can be found, and you spend an action to produce and look for the artifact. This then becomes an object that you have to bring back on your ship and return to the vault. And the value of them can vary, so different planets can have very different types of artifacts on them. One aspect of the game are hazards, and hazards are points in the solar system that challenge you when you are moving ships or constructing buildings on planets. We can see this hazard is in between the orbit location and the surface location of this planet where we're trying to go and harvest some resources. We can hover over it and get some more information and see that it's a high spin, it has a strength of 6, and it has some potential outcomes of the navigator of the ship losing faith or losing their actions. When we try to move our ship, it will stop at the hazard and force us to resolve it, and then we can see we have a 59% chance of success. The way hazards are resolved is we'll be rolling a number of die equal to the faith of our exile, so we'll be rolling 5 dice here. And the goal is to have any of the dice show a value equal to or better than the difficulty of the hazard, in this case 6. And so we'll roll our dice. Alright, and in this case we were successful because we rolled a 6, and that's it. And we'll close the hazard and resume our journey. Faith is an important concept for each exile. Aside from how many dice they roll for hazards, if an exile's faith ever reaches 0, they cannot perform any actions at all. To recover an exile's faith, we'll bring them to the chapel spot of the vault, and then we'll use a substance called elixir to recover their faith. An elixir is a special substance like fuel or stasis that has to be created. And at the end of the turn, their faith has been restored by 1. The energy calculator is a tool in the Banished Vault to help you plan your ship maneuvers throughout the solar system. Access the calculator from the top of the screen here, and you'll see there are 3 sliders for engine efficiency, ship mass, and fuel. To use the calculator, you simply plug the values into these sliders, and the resulting energy is displayed at the bottom. Engine efficiency is a value that all engines have, and so we can see this small engine has a thrust of 2 with an efficiency of 175, and this bigger thrust engine has an efficiency of 115. A higher efficiency produces more energy per fuel spent in a maneuver. Next, ship mass is a static value for each ship. In this case, our big ship has a mass of 4, and these other smaller ships we have a mass of 2. The more mass a ship has, the less energy is generated by the engine for a maneuver. The last value is fuel, which is how much we want to spend to generate a certain amount of energy, and fuel is a resource you have to create yourself in the game. To use the calculator, first let's decide on a location to go to. Let's say we want to go to the surface of this planet, which has some water and titanium that we want to harvest, but we want to get there in the most efficient way possible. To do that, first we'll set a maneuver destination for the orbit of the planet, and we will use our more efficient engine, which has less thrust, but thrust is not a factor when moving through open space. As we assign fuel in this maneuver, we can see that 4 fuel will give us the energy we need to get to orbit. However, when we land on the planet, we'll need to use our higher thrust engine, and in this case, we'll use the calculator to determine the fuel needs. We know that the total energy is 8, and so we'll start using our calculator. This engine has an efficiency of 115, so we'll plug in 115. Our mass is 4 for the ship, and so we'll set 4. And now we'll see how much fuel we need to spend to get the energy that we need. So as we start increasing our slider here, we can see that 4 will almost but not quite get us to 8, but 5 will put us over the limit. And so now we know that to land on this planet, we need 5 fuel plus another 4 fuel for the 2 maneuvers. Hi, I'm Nick, I'm the designer of the Banished Vault, and today I want to talk to you about the manual for the game. The manual is an integral component to how the game works. It's contained in-game and will also be available in PDF form or a physical version available on Amazon. The first section of the manual are the step-by-step instructions for the tutorial. The game has 2 tutorials. The first one teaches you how to move ships around the solar system using fuel and engines to create maneuvers. The second tutorial is constructing buildings on planets to harvest and create resources. And the main section of the manual is the game concepts. These are all straightforward explanations on how different parts of the game work, and the purpose of this is not that you have to read all of it before you start playing, but to learn as you go, and when you encounter something new or something you don't fully understand, you can turn to that page of the manual and just read how it works and then move on. And this ranges all from interface to how the map looks, maneuvers, and how hazards are laid out, and dice rolls, and so on. The last section of the manual is the reference, and this is just a breakdown of all the things you'll find in the game, the resources, artifacts, all the buildings you can unlock and construct, their purposes, their cost, and so on. And the very last section of the physical manual has an area for you to take notes, write down whatever you want, or a pre-flight checklist, whatever. And that's it. So yeah, again, the manual is in the game. You can also get it as a PDF, or if you want to purchase a physical copy, it will be on Amazon. And thank you very much. Hi, I'm Nick. I'm the designer of the Banished Vault, and I want to talk a little today about how the hazards work in the game. So hazards are points in the solar system when you are moving ships or when you're constructing buildings where you have to roll dice to try and succeed at what you're doing or suffer some kind of penalty, which generally sometimes mean you still do succeed or the ship continues flying, but you lose faith or you might lose resources or actions or so on. The theory behind the dice system is that it should be hopefully straightforward to understand, but still provide an interesting danger to the player, and most importantly, it should never be perfectly solvable. At no point can you guarantee success when you're rolling dice. So here, for example, we have a unstable gravity point in between these 2 asteroids. The strength is 5, and so when we start rolling our dice, what we want is that any of the dice we roll to show a 5 result or higher, and the amount of dice that we roll is equal to the Exile's Faith, which is 5 as well. And so we'll roll these and we'll see that, here we go, perfect success. Generally, the dice system is actually quite generous. Even if you were only rolling 1 dice in this scenario, you would have a 33% chance to succeed, which is pretty low, but not nothing. However, with 5 dice, that success chance only goes up to 86. And so the idea is that, you know, even with 5 dice, you might roll all of them be 4s or lower, right? And then you are suffering the penalties of the hazard. This kind of, the idea behind this is that it kind of incentivizes interesting play. Maybe you're going to play risky for a solar system and have low faith, or you might need to invest with some elixir to increase the faith of your exiles. So there were a couple different variations on this idea. Originally, it was just roll a single dice, that was a d10, and then like the exiles kind of faith was like modifying that result directly. At some point it then became you would roll 2d6 and then the faith would add to that and kind of produce a result. And the final kind of solution that I think we ended up on, which was where the faith directly corresponds to the number of dice, so there's no addition, you just know I'm at 5 dice and that's all I need to know, and then I can kind of simply calculate the odds based on what happens when those dice might roll. And that's it. Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Nick, I'm the designer of the Banished Vault, and I want to talk to you today a little bit about the math behind the game. The math is rooted in real orbital mechanics, and there are two primary values we're trying to work with, which is thrust and energy, which is the equivalent of delta V. Thrust is really straightforward. Each planet or astronomical body has a thrust value, which is sometimes 0, but usually, for planets 1, 2, or higher, and some moons have no value at all. And this is essentially just the kind of strength output that a engine and ship need to make to land safely on the planet, because you can always land on a planet but just crash and impact. The way thrust works in the game is quite straightforward. An engine produces thrust, so this engine creates 4 thrusts, and then ships modify that thrust, usually by reducing it. So this ship has a negative 2 thrusts, and then added together, you get a total thrust value of 2, and as long as that value equals or exceeds the value of the planet, then you're good to go. This kind of cuts out a lot of the real thrust mechanics where, mass of the ship can change and the engine can change, and it kind of depends on the gravity of the planet and the density and all that. But overall, I think this maintains the kind of spirit of the thrust idea, but is very simple. You can look at 2 numbers, do just an addition or subtraction, and know the value you're going to get, and be able to kind of plan your movements with that. The way energy works is delta V. So it is using the Tsiolkovsky rocket equation in the calculation of the efficiency of the engine, which is the equivalent to specific impulse, the mass of the ship, and then you're spending fuel, and then the output is an energy value. This follows the logarithmic fall off that the Tsiolkovsky rocket equation does, and you can see that really easily with the energy calculator. So 1 fuel gives you almost 6 energy, gives you 5 energy, 2 is 9, 3 is 11, 4 is 13, and then it starts to kind of really taper off as you get more and more fuel put into the system. The way this differs from real life is that ships' mass don't actually change at all in the game, regardless of if the ship is full or is empty or it has a lot of exiles on it or no one. The mass is always the same. The reason for this change is it was originally working the correct way with every bit of inventory you put in your cargo would change the mass of the ship. This turned out to be really, really difficult to play, and it was not particularly enjoyable. It led to a lot of planning and ultimately a lot of simple mistakes that were not interesting mistakes that the player were making. It was just not particularly fun. So that was changed, and it kind of made the whole energy system much simpler, but still gives it that feel of, you can look at the map and go, oh, to get into orbit of this gas giant costs 15 energy. That feels substantial. It feels like a lot of energy you have to spend, and so you can feel the amount of fuel that you're consuming, but it's otherwise like a relatively easy kind of calculation to make, because you make the calculation once for the ship and that's it. You don't have to recalculate every time you make a new kind of decision to the cargo that you're bringing on with it. And then the counterbalance from a design point of view is when you want to move ships, you need to spend an action from an exile, and that kind of limits you on making a lot of small moves that have high efficiency, because you'll then need to spend actions off exiles, and that sometimes can be done and sometimes cannot be done. And that's it. So that's kind of the math behind the game. how it kind of came out of orbital mechanics math and then was simplified and abstracted for the final product. Thank you very much.